So once again, good afternoon, everyone. May I invite everyone to stand up for the singing of the national anthem, to be followed by a prayer rendered by Reverend Ben Ngayaan.
Good afternoon. May I encourage everyone to put themselves in the presence of the Almighty God as we are about to pray and ask for His guidance. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. All sovereign, yet most loving God, you are worthy of praise and thanksgiving, for we believe that it is through your guidance that today we are able to come together virtually to discuss how we can best play our part in the election of trustworthy leaders for our beloved nation. We humbly pray most especially for your servant, retired Justice Antonio Carpio, as he is invited administration and fair application of laws may help usher your reign of righteousness and peace here on earth, that your people may have life in its fullness. All these we ask through your beloved Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen.
All right. Isang mapagpalang hapon po sa ating lahat. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Rachel, one of your hosts for this afternoon's forum. My co-host will be introducing himself in a moment. Before we begin, please take note of the following reminders. First, this session is being recorded and broadcasted live on Facebook for documentation purposes. All attendees are required to have their first and last name and their organization as their display name. In order to be considerate and respectful to our speaker and everyone attending today, please put your microphones on mute if not speaking to avoid interruption and to ensure with a smooth flow of the session. We will have a designated time to address your questions, but you may submit questions at any time during the session. To submit a question to our panelists, please enter your question in the chat box. For those watching via Facebook Live, you may post your questions in the comment section.
Naimbag nga malum kada tayo amin, ako po si Dave at sasamahan ko si Rachel sa paggabay sa inyo sa ating aktibidad. Ang ating talakayan sa hapon na ito ay pinamagatang Challenges to Fair Elections in May 2022. Natunay na natataon sapagkat nalalapit na ang May 2022 national elections. Ito po ay inorganisa ng Episcopal Church in the Philippines o ECP sa pamamagitan ng Philippine Episcopalians Advocating for Community Empowerment o mas kilala sa Project Peace at ng Commission on Social Concerns and Development. Inaanyayahan namin ang lahat na makinig ng maigi, makilahok sa diskusyon at umani ng kaalaman na maaaring makatulong sa ating patungkol sa eleksyon.
Thank you, Dave, for the brief backgrounder. To officially start, let us welcome our very own Prime Bishop Brent Harry Alawas to deliver his welcome remarks.
Thank you. Magandang buhay mga kapatid. Welcome and thank you all for participating in this Voters Education Forum this afternoon. Before anything else, let me first express my thanks and appreciation to our speaker, the Honorable Justice Antonio Carpio, for taking time from his busy schedule to be with us this afternoon. Thank you so much, sir. And thank you also to our Peace and Commission members who organized this forum. A story has it that at one time, Saint Peter and a host of angels were hovering up above, looking down on planet Earth. Saint Peter, pointing to the planet, explained, "You know, God made the earth a place of balance, of positives and negatives. You see, the brown spot there is the Arabian desert. It is dry, dusty, and hot on the surface, but underneath is the vast reserve of oil. That's why the Middle East countries are rich. The wonder is the state of Alaska. As you can see, the view of the mountains is just spectacular. Those mountains are full of wildlife, and the rivers are always fresh and teeming with salmon and plenty other species. Masarap ang sashimi nila. It's just fascinating down there. But after the summer, it could be distressing because they have a rather long winter season with long dark nights. Oh, look at those islands there to the right. That is the Philippines. You see, they have amazing white beaches, stunningly beautiful sceneries, bountiful natural resources, and beautiful people. Miss Universe and beauty nila. So the angels quip, "Wow, looks perfect and beautiful indeed." Then one of the angels asked, "So what is the balance there?" Whereupon Saint Peter said, "It comes during elections. Filipinos always elect the unfit for their leaders." Let me just hasten to say that our church is not engaged in partisan politics. Our church is not campaigning for any particular candidate or party. Our campaign is for clean and honest elections. And our forum this afternoon is for the purpose of helping educate ourselves and our people to be wise voters. It is our obligation as a church to be involved constructively with the ongoing political exercise in our country. Nation building is our business as Christians. As we pray daily the Lord's Prayer and say, "Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven," we are praying that God's reign of love, justice, and shalom shall prevail in our country. God's commandments are clear. We do not need leaders who lie, steal, and kill. We want leaders who embody the model of the Good Shepherd, caring, self-giving, competent, and committed to the common good. We vote according to our conscience. So let's make sure that our conscience is educated and informed. So let us now proceed and make the most of this forum. Thank you and good afternoon, everyone.
Maraming salamat po, Prime Bishop, for the very heartwarming remarks. So a virtual round of applause for our Prime Bishop. Yaman ka, Prime Bishop. So at this point in time, we are about to hear from our esteemed speaker. Again, we call on our participants to key in your questions using the chat box, which will be discussed during the open forum. So wag na nating patagalin ito, no? May I now call on Ms. Francine Faith Longi Dalumpines to introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker. Justice Antonio Carpio was born in Davao City. He finished his primary and secondary education at Ateneo de Davao University and obtained the degree in economics from Ateneo de Manila University. He then went on to enroll in the University of the Philippines College of Law, where he graduated valedictorian and cum laude in 1975. He then placed in the bar exams held in the same year. Upon passing the bar, he went into private practice and founded the Carpio, Villaraza and Cruz law firm, which became one of the more prominent firms, as he became also one of the most prominent practitioners in the country. He also taught law in the Grand Manor at the UP College of Law from 1983 until 1992. He was appointed as Chief Presidential Legal Counsel by President Fidel V. Ramos, and in 1998, he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Merit due to his distinguished and exemplary service to the Republic. He has also received various forms of recognition as a distinguished or outstanding alumnus of his alma maters. On his 52nd birthday, he was sworn in as member of the Supreme Court of the Philippines, where he served as chair of the Second Division and chair of the Senate Electoral Tribunal until his retirement on October 26, 2019. Justice Carpio made it his personal advocacy to protect and preserve Philippine territorial and maritime sovereignty, specifically in the West Philippine Sea. So in 2015, the Department of Foreign Affairs sponsored a world lecture on the West Philippine Sea dispute and invited Justice Carpio to present the Philippines' historical and legal case before think tanks and universities in 30 cities and 17 countries. Aside from this, Justice Carpio traveled around the Philippines giving informative lectures on the issue. Justice Carpio also published an ebook entitled The South China Sea Dispute, Philippines' Sovereign Rights and Jurisdiction in the West Philippine Sea. Throughout his career, Justice Carpio has championed good governance and was known as a constitutionalist. He declined his automatic nomination to the post of Chief Justice Vice Chief Justice Renato Puno, believing that former President Arroyo should not be allowed to name the Chief Justice because of Section 14, Article 7 of the Constitution, which prohibited midnight appointments. He again declined the nomination to succeed Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno, although he was the most senior Supreme Court justice. He stated that he had to be consistent with his position that a petition for quo warranto was not the proper way to remove a sitting member of the court, and he did not want to benefit from a decision to which he disagreed. Indeed, Justice Carpio has abided by his oath to uphold the Constitution and obey the laws of the Republic. He has lived up to the mission of the Ateneo to train their students to be men for others, and he has adhered to UP's long tradition of honor and excellence. It is because of his sterling record that we invited him to be our first speaker in this series of events. It is my honor to introduce the best Chief Justice that we never had, Justice Antonio T. Carpio.
Good afternoon. Thank you for that kind introduction. A pleasant afternoon to everyone. Thank you for inviting me to discuss with you this afternoon a very important and timely topic affecting the nation. Our topic this afternoon is challenges to fair elections in May 2022. My discussion will cover 4 parts. First, whether in the last 3 elections, the present automated election system, or AES, has proven to be safe and reliable. Second, whether we can expect the present automated election system to be safe and reliable in the May 2022 elections. Third, what are the safeguards that we must adopt to ensure that the present automated election system will be safe and reliable in the May 2022 elections? And fourth, how do we prevent or minimize vote buying in the May 2022 elections? I have been chairperson of the 3 constitutional electoral tribunals, namely the House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal, the Senate Electoral Tribunal, and the Presidential Electoral Tribunal. Based on the election protests that these 3 tribunals handled in the last 3 elections, I can say with confidence that no one has found a way to hack or tamper with the automated election system. Every election protest under the automated election system involves the examination of 3 data sets. First, there is a manual physical recount of the ballots in the protested precincts. Second, the picture images of the ballots in the SD cards of the voting machines are printed and manually counted. These picture images are taken automatically by the voting machine as the voter inserts his ballot into the voting machine. Third, there is a manual physical recount of the tallies in the original copies of the election returns. In all the election protests handled by the 3 electoral tribunals, these 3 data sets tallied or were consistent with each other. In short, there were no significant variances among the 3 data sets that could not be explained, except in 3 clearly anomalous cases, which I will explain later. The voting machine can read ovals that are shaded at least 25% or more with ballpen. Thus, there are votes that are not counted by the voting machines because the shading is less than 25%, such that they cannot be read by the scanner of the voting machine. In the recount of the physical ballots during election protests, even a single line on the oval indicates the intent of the voter to vote for a certain candidate under the so-called intent rule. Therefore, a single line on the oval is a valid vote that is counted in the physical manual recount, although not reflected in the voting machine count. So all candidates normally enjoy a proportionate increase in their votes in the physical recount, because in the physical recount, those ballots that were not read by the scanners will be counted if they are shaded, even if less than 25%. This explains why VP Lenny Robredo's vote in Bicol increased further during the recount, even as Bongbong Marcos's vote also increased, but the increases in their votes were more or less proportionate to their machine-counted votes. In Bicol, VP Lenny won overwhelmingly, so her votes proportionately increased more than the votes of Marcos when the physical ballots were manually recounted. Let me go to the three anomalous cases. In these cases, the manual physical recount of the ballots differed substantially from the manual count of the picture images of the ballots from the SD cards. The difference is that upon manual physical recount, many ballots had two or more ovals for the same position that were shaded, making the votes stray votes and thus void for the position, since voter voted for two or more candidates for the same position. So when in the recount during the election protest, the advisors found out that for a certain candidate, the voters shaded for a certain position, rather, for Congress, for example, for Congress in a district in Bicol, the voters shaded two ovals, referring to two candidates. That's in the physical count. But in the machine count, it was validly counted. The corresponding picture image from the SD card for the same ballot, based on the serial number of the ballot, because each ballot has a serial number, showed that there was only one oval shaded and not two or more. So in the machine, when the picture image was printed out, there was only one oval shaded. But in the physical ballot during the manual recount, or more ovals were shaded. It is obvious that the shading of additional ovals on the physical ballot happened after election day. That is, after the ballots were transferred from the voting precinct to the storage places of the city or municipal treasurer. In other words, somebody shaded the ovals pertaining to the losing candidate, so that when there will be a recount, that ballot will be considered stray and void because the voter shaded two ovals. You cannot shade two ovals. You have to shade only one. So whoever was doing this wanted to bias, to deduct from the votes of the winning candidate. In these three cases, the tribunals used the picture images of the ballots from the SD cards for purposes of the recount, because obviously the physical ballots were tampered after election day. Not many people know that when you insert your ballot in the machine, a picture is taken of your ballot, and picture image is stored in the SD card. And during the recount, we print that out to compare that printout with the physical ballot that we are counting. If there are differences, and there are serial numbers, we can trace it because each ballot has a serial number. So far, no one has found a way to hack or tamper with the automated election system, because there are three separate data sets that are available to counter-check any anomaly in the voting or counting. Thus, I can say with confidence that in the last elections where the automated election system was used, there has been no successful hacking or tampering of the automated election system. But can we expect that the automated election system will not be hacked or tampered with in the coming May 2022 elections? Of course, just because there has been no successful hacking or tampering in past elections does not mean that there will also be no successful hacking or tampering in future elections. Any software or operating system has vulnerabilities that can eventually be exploited. That is why protecting a software or operating system from hacking is an ever-continuing work in progress. Now, all the election paraphernalia, including the ballots and SD cards containing the operating system, because the SD card contains the operating system, will be delivered to more than 95,000 precincts nationwide by a company called F2, a logistics company owned by Dennis Oy of Davao City. All the election paraphernalia will be transported from COMELEC warehouses in Metro Manila to regional hubs of F2. From where they will be stored for a few days and then sent to every precinct nationwide the day before the elections. Under this setup, there are many possible places where the ballots could be pilfered and the SD cards could be tampered or replaced by unscrupulous people, whether or not connected with the COMELEC or the logistics company. Now, the ballots are precinct specific, just like the SD card. So a ballot can be used only in a particular precinct, and the SD card can be used only in a particular precinct. The SD card in the voting machine contains the list of voters in a particular precinct. So that SD card can be used only in that precinct because it contains the voters in that precinct. The ballot can be inserted only in a voting machine with a specific SD card which contains the operating system also and the list of voters in the precinct. So if you pilfer a ballot, you cannot use that ballot just in any precinct. It has to be used in a particular precinct where it was really intended to be delivered. There are two vulnerabilities during the distribution of the election paraphernalia: the pilferage of the ballots and the tampering or replacement of the SD cards. In these pandemic times, there will be many voters who will not be voting, and so we expect there will be many unused ballots. So those planning to pilfer the ballots know this, that there will be probably many who will not vote, so there will be unused ballots. How can we prevent pilferage of the ballots and tampering of the SD cards? Isang Bayan, in cooperation with its coalition partners, schools, and other NGOs, will field at least 2 poll watchers in every precinct nationwide, or about 190,000 volunteer poll watchers nationwide, to ensure 2 things. First, that the ballots delivered at every precinct are counted before the start of the voting, and that there are no missing ballots. So this is to find out if there are missing ballots. There must be a count of the physical ballots. If there are, it says there are 1,050 ballots were sent to this precinct. We have to count that before the start of the voting to make sure that there are no missing ballots. If there are missing ballots, then our poll watchers are alerted and would then watch with eagle eyes all voters as they insert their ballots into the voting machine, to ensure that they do not surreptitiously insert additional ballots. Because if the ballots are pilfered, it will be inserted into that same precinct. So whoever pilfered it will look for a voter in that precinct to insert it. Second, we have to ensure that the SD cards are not tampered with or to print out predetermined results in election returns. See, you can reprogram the SD card. The SD card contains the operating system. It contains the list of voters. You can add a program there which will say that for every 10 votes, 7 shall go to this candidate. And that is a big problem. Our poll watchers can ensure that there will be no tampering by ensuring the conduct of the random manual audit that is required by law to be conducted at the close of voting hours on election day. This is required by law, random manual audit. The purpose is to precisely that, to check that the flash card or the SD card, the operating system in the SD card have not been tampered with. That's why there is a random manual audit. This is the purpose of the random manual audit, and it's in the law. The law requires the random manual audit of 2 precincts per legislative district, or that's about a total of 700 precincts nationwide. In the past, the COMELEC has not complied with the law because the random manual audit was held several days after election day, and only 1 precinct per legislative district was subjected to random manual audit. So the law is very clear. The random manual audit must be conducted at the close of voting hours on election day, and 2 precincts chosen at random per legislative district. The COMELEC has not been complying with this. We will demand that this will be complied with. We must ensure that the random manual audit should be held at the close of voting hours on election day at the rate of 2 precincts per legislative district as required by law. The legislative districts to be subjected to random manual audit should be chosen at random on election day itself in the presence of the representatives of the political parties. This is crucial to prevent hacking and to assure the electorate that any hacking of the SD cards can be discovered and prevented. Now, after election day, the ballot boxes and the voting machines and all the other paraphernalia are taken back by the logistics company, in this case, F2. F2 will hand over the SD cards to the COMELEC, only the SD cards, while the rest of the election paraphernalia, including the ballots, will be delivered by F2 to the storage areas of the city and municipal treasurers. Now, nobody watches this election paraphernalia in the storage areas after election day, and the ballots could easily be tampered with, as the electoral tribunals have found out in the 3 anomalous cases I mentioned earlier. That is why it is crucial that the random manual audit should be conducted at the close of voting hours on election day itself, and not several days later. The results of the random manual audit must not differ substantially from the results of the election returns. And if they differ substantially, it could show that the SD cards have been tampered. The Isambayan poll watchers, through a smartphone app that will be developed, that we are developing, will also take photos of the election returns in every precinct. You see, at the end of voting day, the machine will print out the election returns and copies will be given of the election returns to the different political parties. Our poll watchers will take photos of the election returns in every precinct and transmit the photos of the election returns to our National Coordinating Center that will tally, with the use of scanners and software, all the election returns. So this is a parallel count. In this way, we can easily verify if the official transmission of the election returns from the precincts to the COMELEC servers and to the district, city, municipal, and provincial canvassing boards have been tampered or not. Because they have been saying when the election returns are transmitted electronically to the servers of COMELEC, to the canvassing boards, they are being hacked while they are being transmitted from one tower to another. There has been talk in the last elections because of the so-called 7-hour glitch that the electronic transmission of the election returns from the precincts to the COMELEC servers have been hacked as the data were being transmitted from one transmission tower to another. With the smartphone app, our poll watchers at district, municipal, city, and provincial board of canvassers will receive from our National Coordinating Center the results of the election returns in every precinct within the district, municipality, city, or province, as well as the total votes within these jurisdictions. So they will know what were the votes in the town, in the district, in the city, in the province. And they will be checking the board of canvassers. Thus, our poll watchers can easily verify any variances in the election returns and object to the admission of tampered returns. In short, with the smartphone app, our poll watchers can prevent tampering of the election returns or the certificates of canvass at every canvassing board. In the national canvass of the senatorial elections, the COMELEC and bank uses the paper certificates of canvass prepared and signed by the provincial and chartered city boards of canvassers. These paper certificates of canvass are physically transported by members of the Board of Canvassers from the provinces and cities to the site of the COMELEC Canvassing Center in Metro Manila. You've seen this on TV. The National Board of Canvassers for Senatorial elections they wait for the certificates canvass to be arriving from different provinces. These are physical certificates of canvass signed manually by the members of the Board of Canvassers. The COMELEC does not use the certificates of canvass electronically transmitted from the Board of Canvassers to the COMELEC national servers. So any hacking of the electronic transmission of the certificates of canvass will not affect the national canvassing for the senatorial elections. At this canvassing for the senatorial elections, our poll watchers will also be present and armed with the total votes per province and chartered cities, as computed by the Isambayan's National Coordinating Center. So our poll watchers can easily counter-check any tampering of the certificates of canvass from the provinces or chartered cities. Now, the same process is followed in the national canvassing by Congress for the presidential and vice presidential elections. What is canvassed by Congress are the physical certificates of canvass signed by members of the Board of Canvassers of provinces and chartered cities. They don't use the printouts of the servers of the COMELEC. Congress does not use certificates of canvass generated or printed from the COMELEC servers. At the presidential and vice presidential canvassing in Congress, our poll watchers will also be present to ensure that the certificates of canvass that are read in the proceedings are the same certificates of canvass issued by the Board of Canvassers of the provinces and chartered cities. As you can see, because of the smartphone app, those who plan to hack or tamper with the automated election system in the May 2022 elections will surely be discovered and exposed. The smartphone app will be available to all political parties that want to use it. Isambayan, as well as the political parties that will use the smartphone app, will have copies of all the most important source document, the election returns from every precinct nationwide. So in effect, we are crowdsourcing the protection of the election return. Everybody will have copies of the election returns. That is a source document. Any tampering of the electronic transmission of the election returns from the precinct to the COMELEC servers, or any tampering of the tallying of the election returns, or any tampering of the certificates canvas can easily be checked, discovered, and exposed because we have the source documents. All the political parties will have the source documents. The media will have the source documents. Now, lastly, let me discuss vote buying. Vote buying happens outside of the precinct. And there is nothing that poll watchers can do about it except to ensure that the voter's receipt is deposited in the designated box and not pocketed by the voter as proof of how he voted. Because when you vote, you will be shown a receipt confirming how you voted. But you cannot keep that receipt. You must put it in a designated box because you could show it to somebody who has paid you how you voted. There is, however, another form of vote buying with the use of government funds, which are spent on soft projects like livelihood programs to benefit certain barangays. The National Task Force to End the Local Communist Armed Conflict, or NTF-LTAC, an agency under the Office of the President, can distribute 20 million pesos per barangay that are ostensibly cleared, quote and unquote, cleared of communist insurgency. President Duterte requested 28.1 billion pesos for the 2022 budget of the NTF-LCAC, but Congress reduced this to 17.1 billion pesos, which is still a lot of money. However, the 2021 General Appropriations Act has been extended for another year by Congress up to end of 2022. And there are substantial savings in tens of billions of pesos from the 2021 General Appropriations Act. The President can realign these huge savings to the 2021 budget of the NTF-LCAC. In other words, if there were 50 billion pesos of savings in the 2021 GAA, General Appropriations Act, that can be realigned entirely by the President to the NTF-LCAC. And that can be used between now and Election Day. So the President can use tens of billions of realigned funds from the 2021 GAA for the NTF-LCAC in addition to the 17.1 billion 2022 budget of the NTF-LCAC. This will wipe out the opposition in the May 2022 elections. So we have to monitor the use not only of the 2022 budget of the NTF-LCAC, but also the possible realignment of the savings in the 2021 General Appropriations Act to the 2021 budget of the NTF-LCAC. How? Well, under Section 261V of the Omnibus Election Code, the ban on disbursement of public funds within 45 days before the election day applies not only to public works, but also to social service expenditures, like livelihood programs. That's the fund releases for public works, because under the NTF-LCAC, they can finance farm-to-market roads. The fund releases for public works and social welfare projects of the NTF-LCAC are prohibited during this election ban, 45 days before the date of the election. With that, I end my presentation. Thank you for your kind attention and a pleasant day to everyone.
Antonio Carpio for that very comprehensive and effective discussion. Let's give him a virtual round of applause from our participants, if you may. Ayan po. So here are some of the takeaways from Justice Carpio's talk. Perhaps some of the team can also supplement among those that I might fail to mention. So he has given us an extensive narrative on how the automated election system has not been tampered or hacked in the past elections because of examining 3 data sets. Firstly, the manual physical count. Second, the picture image of the ballots from the SD cards. And third, the manual physical recount of the tallies. He also emphasized that since these softwares still have vulnerabilities, and with the nature of the May 9, 2020 elections, 2 vulnerabilities of the delivery of the ballots are noted. First, that there could possibly be a pilferage of the ballots and tampering of the SD cards. One of the noted things that he presented as a sort of prevention is to field at least 2 poll watchers in these election stations. He also noted the conduct of random manual audit, which is crucial to prevent hacking or tampering because it checks the flash and SD cards. And finally, he also emphasized the importance of the smartphone app. I hope we took note of this because I think this is what is new in the May 9, 2020 elections. Very interesting to note that we already have some sort of way to monitor our the data from the elections, that everybody will have a copy of the election returns, and hopefully with the presence of this app, no possible hacking or tampering, or if there is a possible hacking or tampering, we will be able to monitor and check and regulate such hacking. And lastly, he also noted concepts under vote buying, particularly in the release of the funds, and hopefully that the 45-day election ban shall prevent current political possible political release of the budget in the process before the election. So may I ask
ng handlers and implementers, those involved dito sa pag-handle ng ating mga machines, from sa counting until dun sa yun nga yung random audit na sinasabi natin, that these processes should be strictly followed and be monitored. So yun nga, kung isa-summarize ko siya in one word, siguro responsibility. And again, thank you for that comprehensive talk, Justice Antonio. May we hear from our other facilitators if they have any addition before we proceed?
mukhang wala na yata, Sir Dave.
Okay, so,
May we queue in our participants in Facebook Live and right here sa Zoom to start entering your questions for Justice Carpio in relation to his talk and also in relation to, of course, challenges to fair elections. We will be lining up your questions and we will be entertaining them in a while. Sir Dave?
yes, so following the message of Justice Carpio, which is the highlight of this activity, and likewise, it ignited our thoughts. So let us now proceed to the next anticipated part of the program, which is of course the open forum. So before we go to that, attendance check mo lang muna siguro tayo kung buhay pa ang diwa ng ating mga participants, ano? So paingayin naman natin ang ating chat box, okay? So sa mga taga Luzon, maaari nyo bang i-type ang Filipino sa ating chat box kung kayo po ay nariyan at kasama namin? So again, sa mga taga Luzon, kindly type in or key in sa ating chat box or sa FB comments ang word na Filipino kung kayo po ay kasama namin dito sa ating talakayan. So go. Pahingayin po natin ang ating chat box. Ayan po. So kindly make sure na i-direct ninyo ang ating chat box sa lahat para po hindi lang po isang tao ang nakita. Ayan, siguro konti yung mga taga Luzon dito sa sa Zoom, siguro sa FB comment section maingay sila. So anyway, aside from sa mga taga Luzon, you may key in yung word na Filipino later on. How about sa mga taga Visayas? May we type in the word responsible. Ayan. So sa mga taga Visayas naman, kindly key in the word responsible sa ating chat box so that we will know if you are with us dito sa ating platform. Ayan, tulog ba ang ating mga participants? Parang walang nagchat-chat, ano? And finally, sa mga taga Mindanao, kindly key in the word voter. Ano naman? Ayan, so for our participants joining from the province or from the Mindanao area, kindly key in the word voter so that we will know if you are with us dito sa ating virtual platform. And even sa ating FB Live participants. Ayan, siguro busy sila nag-prepare ng kanilang questions. But anyway, you can always key in yung mga words na yan so that we will know if you are with us later on. Okay? So ayan, so again, you may type your questions in the chat box for those who are with us here in the Zoom platform. And for those who would prefer to personally relay their questions, you may use the raise hand button and patiently wait for us to acknowledge you before you unmute yourself. Okay? At bago po natin ibahagi ang ating katanungan, ay sabihin muna natin ang ating pangalan at ang organisasyon na kinabibilangan natin. And for those joining in the FB live stream, kindly send your questions in the comment section. At maaari din po kayong magtanong gamit ang inyong makinalakyan na lengguwahe. Ayan, so Ilocano man data, Tagalog, Bisaya, kung yun po ang makakatulong sa inyo upang mas komportable kayong may bahagi ang inyong mga katanungan, then so be it po. Tutulong po ang ating tech team at organizers sa pag-translate ng mga questions na ito. So I just noticed message kanina. So possible na walang option yung mag-message kanina. But anyway, we know that you are with us. So to get the ball rolling, may we start with this question, Justice Carpio, para lang po masimulang mainitan ang ating discussion this afternoon. So the first question is from the FB chat box. Ayan. So given the doubts cast on F2 Logistics mentioned earlier, which was contracted by COMELEC to distribute the ballots, both counting machines or the VCMs and other supplies for the May 9, 2022 elections, is there a legal basis to request a third-party audit of the software that will run the counting machines?
There is already a audit taking place now because the law requires that the source code be open for inspection and audit by political parties and other interested parties. And it's going on right now. The COMELEC has been conducting it. That's part of the law that every election before the start of the automated election system, there will be a public audit of the operating software, and that's happening now. But
Okay, so
because we don't expect them to hack or to pollute or to do something wrong in the operating system, what we are afraid of is that the SD card will be hacked. In other words, they will add a program or a software there that will instruct the voting machine to print a different list of voters, a different list of winning candidates. Yeah, that's the, I doubt if they will tamper with the automated election system at the national level, because everybody's watching that. So if ever they will hack it, it will be in certain precincts. Thank you.
thank you very much, Justice. So another question, siguro aside from One Sambayanan, are there other watchdogs we can or the citizens rely on to watch over these processes?
Yes, all the political parties, all the candidates are entitled to designate poll watchers, and the media will also be there. In fact, there are about 30 copies of the election returns that will be printed, original copies, and this will be distributed to the political parties and to the media and the PPCRV and all the other NGOs that are joining the electoral process. So plus the election returns will be posted in the municipal hall, so anybody can take a picture of the election return because they will be posted. So we can get copies of these election returns. So it's a question. Before it was difficult. If you get a copy, what do you do with one copy? Now, because of the smartphone app, the collation and the addition, the aggregation of all the election returns per district, city, province, municipality can be done by software, by the computer. So it's easier now. Thank you.
So that is reassuring po, Justice, knowing that it will be broadcasted and can be seen by everyone. So for our next question, Justice, do you think mainstream media is doing enough to provide voters education and other informed campaigns to help ensure free elections?
Well, there is never enough because we should continue educating. I just got a text now that we should not call it voter education because people don't want to, because it doesn't give a good connotation. So it's a voter orientation. So yes, it should continue because the people don't really understand the process. All that I've discussed now, people say that, oh, there's hacking, but you know, I've been chair of the Electoral Tribunal, all the electoral tribunals, and nobody has found a way to hack the automated election system. Those who tried to hack it, they went to the city or municipal treasurer's office, shaded the ballots so that they will become void. All votes they will go to a precinct where their opponent won. So they will shade the ballots. So all those votes will be void because for one position, there will be two ovals or more shaded. But we can check that against the picture image. So nobody, it happened in 3 cases already. And of course, the one who protested was of course humiliated because it was found out that it could have been done only by him. No? So nobody has found a way to hack the automated election system. But of course it can happen. I mean, because it's nothing's perfect here when it comes to software. It can always be hacked. But we have to be on guard all of the time. Thank you.
So again, Justice Carpio again emphasized the responsibility of everyone to be alert, because even if there is a reassurance na yun nga po, unlikely ang hacking, it can still be possible. So all of us should be alert. So thank you, Justice Carpio. So for the next set of questions to my partner,
Yes, we
Rachel.
have Domingo. From Nelson Santo Domingo, he said, what are the different kind of electoral frauds that we should be aware of, and how do we counter these electoral frauds? Perhaps, Justice, besides those that you have already mentioned, what are some of the other different kinds of electoral frauds that we should be aware of, and how do we counter these?
Well, the electoral fraud that I've mentioned, outside of the precinct, outside of the automated election center, is vote buying. But, you know, for them.
All right, thank you, Justice. We will note those social media companies, and we'll also do our part in monitoring as well. In relation to that question, we have another question here po. Up to what extent should we rely on or trust election polls and surveys? Up to what election polls and
Well,
surveys?
election polls and surveys are done by private entities, part of freedom of expression, really, because you can conduct a poll and then publish it, provided that you allow people who want to fact check you to go over your data. It's part of freedom of expression, and the Supreme Court has ruled that you cannot stop the polls, the survey companies from conducting polls, except that during the election period, I think you have to submit a copy to the COMELEC, and you must disclose your data to other political parties that may want to check it. But it's part of freedom of expression. But because of freedom of expression, anyone can say that you conducted a survey, but then if you want to check it, demand that they give you the data or substantiate. Because especially now during COVID, it's difficult to have a face-to-face interview with the respondents in a survey. And it's very expensive to conduct a nationwide survey. So not everybody can afford it. I mean, the political parties themselves are having a hard time paying for these surveys. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. So it is imperative for us to also fact check these election polls that we see online, especially for the younger generation and for people who are quick to believe in what social media postings are with regards to these polls. We have another question here, Justice. If, for instance, the May presidential elections would come down to a close election, what measures could the COMELEC take to assure the public of the legitimacy of close election results? I repeat po, if, for instance, the May presidential elections would come down to a close election, what measures could the COMELEC take to assure the public of the legitimacy of close election results?
Well, that's why all the election returns, all the certificates of candidacy will be available to everybody, and the public can check this. And it's difficult to manipulate the results because everybody will have copies of the election returns. That's our purpose actually with the smartphone app. Everybody will get hold of a copy of the election return. So, and if it's close, that's it. I mean, in the last election, VP Robredo won by how many? Less than 300,000 votes. That's very close. Now, if you want to contest that, you can go to the Supreme Court. If it's a presidential or vice presidential election, you can go to the Presidential Electoral Tribunal, could contest it. But we just have to rely on what the NGOs are doing now with this smartphone app. We have to help disseminate all the election returns so that it's easy to compute. For example, in your own town, you can easily do your own quick count if you have all these election returns. Thank you.
Oh, okay po. Thank you very much, Justice. I hope that was also part of his talk anyway po. So emphasized lang po as he answered the question. May I throw on the next set of questions to my partner, Dave?
Yes, thank you again, Rachel. For the next question, Justice, can you enlighten us, because we have questions in the chat regarding the appointment of commissioners or justices directly by the president. So can you enlighten us on the process on how these officials or these persons are being appointed to their positions?
Well, right now, Congress has adjourned. And so any appointment to the vacancies in the COMELEC will be ad interim. In other words, the president can now appoint ad interim. Anyone he wants to appoint, he doesn't have to get the consent of the Commission on Appointments. So if he appoints a new chair of the COMELEC, that chair sits and performs the function of a chairman, even without confirmation by the Commission on Appointments, because it's an ad interim appointment. And this happened already during the time of Benepayo. He was appointed as chair, so he presided over the elections, but after the elections, he was not confirmed by the Commission on Appointments, and that's it. So the president can appoint 3 commissioners, 1 chair and 2 associate because of the vacancy. There's still time because the ban on appointments by the president will start 60 days before the election. That's I think that's March 9. So between today and March 9, the president can appoint because Congress is not in session, it is adjourned. It's an ad interim appointment. Thank you.
Okay, Justice. So in relation to that, is there how can this impact the upcoming elections, knowing that this is possible that the president can appoint anyone in the position?
Well, that means the president has 3 more votes there. He can put in 3 more votes. And he wouldn't care whether they are confirmed or not, because after the election, that's done already. And that's because of circumstances. That's why I think we really have to review next time that the terms should be staggered so that no one person can appoint all, like what's happening now in the Supreme Court. It's practically appointed 13 out of 15. So we have to make these revisions the next time we consider amending the Constitution. These are the situations that we have to address in the next Constitutional Convention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Justice. So again, to our viewers, I hope we take good note of that, because these are the things that we have to really watch on the next administration. So siguro ito patalastas siguro na question po, Justice, para hindi masyadong mabibigat. So in your experience, Justice, what would you consider to be the fairest election in Philippine electoral history? Yan po.
Well, I really cannot say. I think those who were declared winners really won in all presidential elections. But were there anomalies? Well, you cannot avoid that. But because if you cheat with about 5,000 to 10,000 votes, that could change the result in a local election, in the city, in a district, congressional, province. But in the national elections, especially for the presidency, you're talking of millions of votes. It's difficult. I mean, if you plan to buy votes for the national elections, difficult. Because you're talking of millions of voters here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Justice. So we have another question here from the chat box. Siguro,
what is the question?
so does it concern you that there are even more Filipinos now who are suddenly exposed to social media without enough information and media literacy?
Well, that's given already. That's something we cannot change. And we just have to do our best to educate everybody, to orient everybody. That is why we have this smartphone app so they'll get the correct facts. Basic here is you must have the correct facts. That is the fundamental thing. In anything I do, I want to have the facts first. And the facts in this case will be the election returns. The election returns must be in the hands of everybody. And in that way, you will prevent hacking. You can prevent manipulation. You can prevent cheating.
Okay, so thank you very much, Justice. As emphasized again, importante na bantayan natin yung election returns. So for the last set of questions, I may pass on again the screen to my partner, Rachel.
Thank you, Dave. Please bear with the questions, Justice. They keep on coming. Ito po, balik lang po tayo doon sa app. You mentioned that there will be 2 Sambayan poll watchers per precinct. Is that right po?
A minimum of 2.
A minimum of 2. Okay po. Were they able to get volunteers already? We're wondering, and if kulang po ng volunteers, how does one volunteer if needed?
Yes, we are looking for volunteers nationwide. We have chapters all over the country, Sambayan chapters. You can get in touch with our chapters if you want to volunteer. Thank you. We are partnering with IT schools. I cannot just name them, but we are already discussing with IT schools because they have students who can be poll watchers. Thank you.
Yes, po. But perhaps this will be available in a website, Justice, or in case that these students are not IT
No, you
students
don't have
or
to be an
graduates?
IT student to be a poll watcher. But what I'm saying is that's where because we are partnering with some schools.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Justice. I hope that was clear to our participants. We have a question here, Justice. We often hear the advice to vote wisely, but for those who live in a hand-to-mouth existence, a wise vote is one for the candidate who will give him the means to eat a good meal for at least a day. Given this, how do we now characterize a wise vote in terms that those who have less in life can better relate to?
Well, I think that has been answered by theologians that, of course, these people who readily give millions of pesos away probably got their millions through illegal contracts also. So these are, in a way, public funds also taken from the public, from the people. So the people who don't have a meal for the day can accept this, but they are not morally bound to vote for those people who gave them. They can vote still according to their conscience. That's the way I see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. We have another question here. The Philippines has long been a geopolitical ally of the US and the democratic states of the West until the Duterte administration pivoted to China and Russia. These nations have their own interests and would want a Philippine president who is on their side. Do you foresee that there will be interference by these nations? And what can we do to avoid such interference this coming May 2020 elections?
Well, I think Russia will not interfere because it's too far away from their sphere of influence. China will interfere because I